Oh my gosh, we're live. Kristi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing great. I'm glad we finally got to connect.
I know, me too.
So, tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are, and why we're doing this interview today.
Absolutely. So, my name is Kristi Williams, and I'm a religious trauma coach, a field that didn't exist a few years ago, but there's a huge need for it. There's just a collective waking up going on and saying the old ways of doing things aren't working. So, I was raised in what I call high control religion. I was raised Seventh-day Adventist, and I was
Oh,
deep in it.
I like
I
to
was the
call it a cult.
poster child.
Yeah. Are they
Yeah.
they're
So,
the vegans, right? They're the ones that don't eat meat.
yes, yeah, and I still am mostly vegan after leaving it.
Okay.
I still kind of like that lifestyle.
I was a vegetarian for 12 years.
So okay, okay.
Yeah.
Any religious reasons why, or just personal interest?
No, just personal health. Honestly, I was
Uh-huh.
extremely ill years ago, back in my late 20s, and
Oh, huh.
I met someone that said, "Here's what you need to do," and so I went hardcore vegetarian, and I was the not the typical vegetarian. I was a veggie eating vegetarian. You know what I mean? I
Yes,
wasn't the
yeah,
vegetarian that only ate cakes and cookies and ding dongs and Twinkies because it
right.
no meat in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a lot of that growing up, the Oreo eating kind of vegans, Oreos and Coke. Well, we didn't drink Coke actually because we couldn't have caffeine either. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I'm the veggie eating kind of vegan too. So
Okay. Are you still you no caffeine, huh?
no, that all changed.
Well, okay.
So, well, I started drinking coffee. That was a big moment. Like, oh my goodness, I could start my day with a cup of coffee.
Yeah. I
But
don't
you
know if
know
I can
it.
interview you if you don't drink coffee.
Well, actually, I don't really drink coffee, because now I have like a mixed greens drink I drink in the morning with matcha in it, and it
Oh,
just
yeah, I
has a
love
much like
matcha.
smoother kind of feel. So,
Yep.
really like that.
You ever try that mushroom coffee?
Yeah, and I put my mushrooms in it too.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've heard
mushroom powder I add to it.
nice.
So,
I've tried it. I'm just a coffee guy, but I don't drink it black. You know, people, I guess real coffee
yeah.
drinkers drink it black. So I'm not a real coffee drinker, even though I claim to be. I can't do the Starbucks. I can't do that crap.
No, no, no.
That's
Yeah.
all sugar anyway.
But no, I'm still a latte girl. If I'm gonna have a coffee, it's a latte for sure.
That's
So,
awesome. And what part
yeah.
of the state do you reside? Where are you?
I'm in central Michigan.
Oh, Michigan. Oh, so you've been getting a lot of snow.
Yeah, yeah, we have about a foot on the ground right behind me.
Oh, wow. Nice. Yeah, we got a little bit of
So,
snow here in Kansas City, but not too bad. It's like
mhm,
some of that 6
mhm,
inches of it or so.
mhm,
Not too bad. It's gone now.
mhm. Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't stick around long.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was the poster child, Seventh-day Adventist, and I my husband was raised Seventh-day Adventist too, and for we were like fourth generation, and did all the things, but my family got really into this teaching in the Adventist church that it has to do with like God's judgment, the investigative judgment is what they called it. And it was this teaching that in order to make it to heaven, you not only have to like confess your sins, you have to overcome every sin and develop a sinless character, like by the time of the judgment. And that at some certain point in time, Jesus would stop forgiving your sins, and you don't really know when that is, but at that point you have to have a perfect character. And so, which really is a variation on a theme of like evangelicalism in general,
Yeah.
and they want to say like, oh, we don't believe that. It's like, no, you all do. It's just a variation on a theme.
Sure. Yeah, there's
So
this
yeah.
sanctification, what I guess in the spiritual realm they would call enlightenment, which, I don't need a God to be enlightened. In my mind, as an atheist, it's like, well, I believe in meditation. I believe in getting my mind right. There's so many things that I resonate with in that space, but I don't I don't need a God for that. When people talk about the collective or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, we're all conscious beings on the earth. There's some sort of connectivity with that. That seems
Hmm.
that doesn't seem like I don't need a God for that.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Still believe in love and kindness and goodness and
Hmm.
all the things, but I just don't need a God for that. And
Right.
especially when you start thinking about, well, I don't want to do this because then I'll go to hell. It's like, oh, brother,
Mm. Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
so as you were beginning to deconstruct yourself from that fundamental view. How was that journey for you? Because now you're helping other people do it. Who helped you, and what did you do?
So back in 2021, I was doing a Bible study on the Holy Spirit, and I had this epiphany that really seems so simple, but it was like, wait, the whole image is that the divine is within me, and I keep looking out there, and it was just this pivotal shift to go, wait, like what's inside of me? Maybe the answers, maybe the powers inside of me, and between that realization, COVID hitting, having two small kids, that social isolation, and then just these kind of this extreme paranoia in my religion, I ended up in religious psychosis and spent 10 days on a grippy socks vacation in the psych ward. And
Wow.
yeah, so
Tell
I
us about
met
that too. Goodness gracious. Go ahead. Go ahead. Keep
yeah,
going.
so
Go ahead.
that was my breakdown and my wake up. And the people I met there were my, my companions. They weren't Christians. They were, most of them were, you know, spiritual, not religious type of people. And they'd all been through hell and back, you know, people who'd experienced homelessness and alcohol addictions, drug addictions. And, you know, I when you grow up in high control religion, you live in this bubble and you don't rub shoulders with people like that.
Right.
And you're kind of taught to be afraid, or like those people have issues, you know, they have these addictions.
They're on the side
What
of
I
the devil.
actually felt is that they were the most loving people, most beautiful people I'd ever met. And they healed a very deep place in me. And they or this one guy named Mark, he told me, he said, Kristi, you're gonna change the world through love, but you've got to knock off this religious bullshit. And something in me felt like that he's right, like that he's exactly right. And I didn't know what to do with all those experiences, but it was beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought I was like, God sent me here to convert all these people to Adventism. And you know, looking back, it's like, if anyone sent me to the psych ward, it was to save me from myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was
So
one of the greatest truths that I came on for myself, and I did a video on it. I think it's entitled something like, "You're not talking to God, you're talking to yourself." And that was just an epiphany for me, because now as an atheist, I just did another video about this that comes out later, my experiences with God, what did that look like when I was a Christian? And obviously a Christian would think, well, those are gone today. And it's like, no, well, I don't believe in God, so I'm not having experiences with God. When I thought I was having an experience with God, I was having an experience with myself, like my higher self that wanted to be good and kind and caring and thoughtful and charitable and all those things. Then I realized, oh, I'm not I'm not talking to something like you just said. I'm not talking to something outside myself. I'm talking within myself.
mhm,
And so all the
mhm,
answers lie within,
mhm,
as long as I
mhm,
continue to study and to learn, and I can recall and I can grow and I can learn. I was an
mhm,
anti-evolutionist up until probably just a few years ago.
mhm,
Like, I was a creationist for even when during my deconstruction, I was like, "Well,
mhm,
God did it. I mean, obviously,
mhm,
right?"
mhm. You know,
And
it's funny you say that. I feel like I quit believing in a guy got up in the sky like years ago. And yet it was probably about a month ago I sat down and had a good cry about it. Like that God isn't there. He's just not there. But there's
Mhm.
something still in the back of my mind that thinks he's out there somewhere, you know? It's funny. There's this residual that just hangs on. Like I was having a bad day and the thought went through my head like maybe Satan's doing this. And it's like, where'd you come from?
That damn devil.
But you know, and I think psychologically what I see is that there's this externalization that goes on in Christianity and spirituality too, you know, where it's like, oh, God did this, Satan's doing this, or like anything bad I can do, I can blame it on Satan. It's his fault. He tempted me, you know, or like it almost can create this self-hatred too, because anything good I do, it's not me, it's God working through me because I'm just a filthy, rotten scumbag.
Right.
And so it deranges our sense of self. And this is something that's just so deeply embedded across Christianity is a self-loathing. And that's toxic inside of you.
Yes, very traumatic. Yeah, I just so resonate with what you're saying. I mean, that was such a
Mhm.
pivotal, huge part for me to work through because as you said, if anything bad was happening, I'm like, the devil's attacking me. But or I would just mess things up as a human, and then I would
Yeah.
just ask God to fix it for me. It's
Ugh.
like, I did this and I've messed it up, and now it's like I buy a car without really checking it out or whatever, and then it starts having problems. And oh yeah, if you'd have got this checked out, you would have known that the engine's going to
Ugh.
blow. And I'm like, God, why can you fix this motor for me? Like heal this engine,
Mhm.
and it's like,
Mhm.
no, like that stuff doesn't happen. Now, Christians will claim that it does, right? They'll say, my car wouldn't start and I prayed for it and it started. It's like, sometimes cars don't start and then sometimes they
And
just do.
sometimes they
Like
just
it
start.
doesn't, like, because Christians never I know I didn't. I'm talking about myself here. If you're watching, this is just my story. I would only give God credit and make it vocal when I did pray and it seemed to go my way, right? I'm praying for a parking spot front row and I get one. Like, oh, God answered my prayers. And then, but I didn't tell you about the 9 other times that I prayed for a front row spot and I never got it.
Right.
I'm only
Right.
telling you the things that I actually that it worked out. And which is what testimony service is. I don't know if they did that in the Advent church or in the church you were a part of, Seventh-day Adventist, but we would do like Sunday night testimony service, and people would, God healed my headache, I stubbed my toe, and God did that. It's like, oh brother, like
I've
this is
heard it
just
called like
stuff.
the cardboard poster parade where everyone comes through like this cardboard cutout, like, I was this dirty, filthy, rotten scumbag, and then whoop, Jesus changed my life. And it's you got to have that story, And there are a lot of us that didn't have this like powerful conversion story, and you feel like, what's wrong with me? Well, and your background is Pentecostal, and a lot of Pentecostals I talk with, they're like, yeah, I never like, was given the gift of tongues. So there's kind of this like in crowd, like God's special chosen people, and then everybody else who like somehow like missed out on God's blessing. And it's just all this like hierarchy and us versus them and in and out. And it's not healthy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And by the way, everybody, make sure you stay tuned because towards the end of this interview, we're going to do a little role play, and I'm going to be the person going through the deconstruction process, and Kristi's going to help me as a therapist work through some of those. So hopefully we'll touch on some of the things that you're dealing with right now as we talk. Um, but see, what do you think? What do you see in your practice as being some of the common real challenges that people going through the initial deconstruction process? Like, what are the, like, I don't know, the top 3 or top 5 things that are pretty common that they really struggle with, and it makes it difficult for them to walk away?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. That's an excellent question. So one of the big ones that's probably the low hanging fruit and kind of obvious is a fear of going to hell for questioning, or they feel like they're told they're choosing to turn their back on God, and there's going to be real consequences for that. But I think once people are past that point and they get past it a number of different ways, the surprising thing then is that the religious trauma really doesn't sound very religious much at all. It's usually much less about theology. It's about family. It's about family trauma, attachment trauma from the family of origin. It's about relationships and struggling in marriage, not ever having been given tools to know how to find someone who's compatible with you, no tools for conflict resolution. And the deepest core piece is this lack of knowing who we ourselves are, our relationship with ourselves, our unique identity, our purpose, and then how to bring that into being, how to get out of the people pleasing and living in a box of who you're supposed to be who you really are. And so, that's the funny thing about being a religious trauma coach. I spend so little time talking about religion, theology, any of that, and almost all the time talking about the way that those systems shaped relationships and the fallout from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I don't talk about some parts of my story, mainly just for privacy reasons. I mean, people know because I've alluded to it, but I was married before and married for 25 years. And she's a good person. We get along just great. Matter of fact, my wife now and my kids and my ex all spent a week on vacation in Florida together and had a wonderful time. It was, people are like, wow, that's crazy. I'm like, well, that just speaks to, two mature adults that realized they had come to a place where it just wasn't going to work anymore. And there's a lot more details in there, and I don't usually share those much, but it we got married when we were both very, very, very religious, fundamentally religious. Tongue talking, my whole little spiel that I say, and it just we obviously I have no regrets because I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I wouldn't have the kids.
Mhm.
There's all those things, right? So, I'm very aware that you can't change the past. All you can do is work on yourself now to be better for the future. And I say it all the time. I'm a better person as an atheist than I ever was as
Mm.
a Christian. I'm more ethical.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and it's hard to explain that. And it's hard. And I know when I say it, people struggle that doesn't even it doesn't compute at all in their brain. They can't reconcile how that could be.
Could
And
I take a crack at it?
yeah, yeah, do it.
I talk about externalized versus internalized morality. So in Christianity, with the Bible, no matter what your moral code is, how you read the Bible, you have an externalized moral code. If your moral code is coming from a book, a group, your parents' religion, it's something outside of you that's being given to you. And as humans, we have a tendency, we want to look for the loopholes or the way we can buck the system to trick the system. And you see this so much. You see it in story after story of abuse, where it's like, well, the person being abused is told they need to forgive, and it's kind of like this loophole, or the abuser saying, well, I confess and God forgave me. And so this is the nature of humans relationship with externalized morality,
Yeah,
where what is actually a powerful, impactful moral code is internalized morality, where we
yeah.
say, this is who I am. I'm doing it because it's what I believe. There's nothing expecting it of me. So if I were to bucket or find a loophole, I'm betraying my own self, my own core. It's the locus of identity, of being. And so we act from our internal moral code and intuitive goodness, intuitive sense of right, and then there's nothing that we're trying to buck or fight against. It's a much
Interesting.
stronger way of being.
Yeah. Well, well, thank you, because I've always I've struggled because I'm not a therapist. My expertise is more in relationships, and of course, this telling my story because I lived it. Um, yeah, like even when I talk to guys, I still will do some coaching here and there, and I've had guys, Christian guys, that are they're struggling with porn or struggling with addictions, and it's always so interesting to me because I've never been an addictive personality, thank goodness. I just don't, I mean, maybe I'm addicted to coffee. I mean, there's certain things I'm probably addicted to, but
Sure.
I've never had something have me. I've more had it.
Mhm.
At least
Mhm.
this is where I'm sure I have a lot of issues that maybe not aware of. I feel like I'm somewhat self-aware, especially through this journey. And that just really resonated with me, what you said, because it was Jesus in me being good. And I remember when I went to
Mm.
therapy, my counselor was like, "No, Timmy, you're good.
Mm. Mm.
You're good. You just have to, discover yourself and not look at those parts of you that want to do things bad as a separate part of you that you need to
Mm.
take out or, bring into
Mhm.
captivity every thought, via the blood of Jesus." In other words, it was like God on the outside was keeping me caged to keep me moral.
Mhm. Mm.
And I thought, and my counselor was like, "No, Timmy, let yourself out of the cage, trust yourself, and you'll be surprised at what will come about." And that was difficult because I really, really, really thought that if I was to let go of this God, in the words of Christopher Hitchens, this celestial dictatorship that's, watching me and even judging me for my thoughts.
Mhm.
Like you said, Christianity is notorious for teaching you're bad. Your righteousness is this filthy rags. In other words,
Mhm.
you're no good. You're a piece of shit. But hey, listen, I got good news. Jesus was perfect. So if you accept him into your
Mhm.
heart, it changes everything.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
just look around. That's clearly not true, because if people say that Jesus has the power to do this, okay, then how is it that so many Christians are completely messed up, still have addictions, still have all these issues? I know Christians right now. I just talked to some the other day, and their life is just miserable dealing with this and addiction and all this
And
stuff.
in addition, they've got to whitewash it to put on the image that Jesus is working in their life.
Right.
And I know you've done a whole episode talking about that too, the
Yeah.
facade.
Yeah. Well, that's where I feel like Christianity or religion in general, especially high control, is immoral. And you see it with
Mm.
these pastors that they teach against something, and yet behind closed doors, that's what they're doing. And they're not
Mhm.
just doing it a one-off. They're living this double life
Mm.
and teaching the congregation to be, pure and sin-free. And
Mm.
yet, they've got extra apartments where they hire prostitutes.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
but they do have this. One lady talked about after she was molested by this pastor, he would pray and he would ask God to
Mhm.
forgive him, and he would say, "Please forgive me and
Mhm.
pray with me." And I'm just like,
Mhm.
but I understand that, because oddly enough, I was interested in porn when I was a pastor. Now I can just tell you with a pure conscience, porn doesn't I don't have a
Mhm.
there's n I don't I'm not drawn to it. It's not something "Oh, I need to get on there and see this." That just washed away, and that is just
Mm.
it still boggles my mind. It was like
Right,
something
because
I
it wasn't
struggled
the
with.
blood of Jesus that washed it away.
Right,
Can
and
I take a crack at that one as
yeah,
a coach?
yeah,
Yeah, so in our psyche, we have there's these concepts called polarization or splitting. So if you think of like two magnets pushing away from each other, or equal and opposite effects, when we take a piece of who we are, our good, righteous, holy self, and then amplify that, it's that facade, that perfect, button down, like ironed out crisp suit for Sunday. There's the opposite part of our psyche that goes just as far in the opposite direction. And what it will do, nobody knows. But the further you project out this perfect image, the further there's this piece running away from it that wants to act out in some way, can manifest in different ways. But that's exactly why we're driven to the secret sins, the porn addiction, the whatever.
yeah,
And what we talk about in coaching, one of the concepts is like internal family systems. And so we have our higher self, and it's almost this loving parent, this voice of wisdom inside of us that can bring in all of these parts, this part that believes it's very holy, this part that wants to be very wicked, and just get to know it and say, you're okay. And I say, something that's very important as humans is we all need to choose a vice. You either choose your vice, or your vice will choose you. So
yeah,
pick something and then go enjoy it, and
yeah.
you can pick a vice that's not going to harm yourself and others. It's just something you enjoy. And that's what we couldn't do as Christians.
Yeah. Well, everything was looked at as sin, right? It was sin to masturbate. It's like, are you kidding me? That's not sin. There's nothing immoral about it. In fact,
You
like
mean to tell me your God created this function and now you're not supposed to use it?
that's like, wait, God doesn't want you to smoke weed. Why would he make it grow in my backyard?
Satan grew it.
That's right, the devil's lettuce. That really that does clarify a lot of things in my mind, because there were so many things that I looked at as immoral. And I found when I was a Christian, I was very interested in all those things. And now as a non-believer, I'm just not interested. I mean, I'm not into
Mhm.
not like masturbation, but it's drinking is a sin, cussing's a sin, watching radar
Mhm.
movies is a sin, having a lustful
Mhm.
thought is a sin. Like, so
Mhm.
you're constantly under a sense of guilt and condemnation and
Mhm.
shame,
And
you know.
morbid curiosity?
Oh, just it's like you tell me not to look at that, and I'm like, well, now that's exactly what I want to look at,
Yeah, yes,
you
yeah.
know. But
Don't look at the elephant in the middle of the room.
right, right, and then try not to do that. And when I left religion, all of a sudden, it it was like the world opened up to me. And now
Mhm.
I live my life in such a way, I'm like, well, would this be beneficial to me? Would this be beneficial to others?
Right.
Would this be beneficial to my relationships?
Right.
Would this be
You just think in
beneficial?
terms of plain cause and effect.
Yeah, I don't think
And
about hell.
I'm gonna piss off any Christian who's listening right now because I got here not from rejecting the Bible, but through what I would say understanding it.
Yeah,
Because in in Second Corinthians it says anyone who's reading Moses and the law of Moses, a veil lies over their eyes and they preach Christ in vain. They don't know Christ. So
yeah,
if you're still keeping the 10 commandments, you don't know Christ, is what the Bible says. And also Paul says, all things are lawful to me. Not all things are helpful. And
yeah,
so even Paul is saying, just use common sense, figure out what's helpful. And that
yeah,
and I think you were alluding to this too. It feels like if you really let yourself just use your own common sense, oh, wouldn't you just be totally hedonistic? Like you would just fall into sin. And it's like, no, you become a more moral person
yeah,
because it's coming from inside of you, not outside of you.
yeah,
So, and last time you and I talked, you said this interesting thing to me that I loved, and I hear it so much from like every atheist agnostic I talk to is that you wish you could go back and meet Jesus, like the real deal guy, assuming he was a real
right, right,
dude, and
right,
he was like how we imagined him to be. You imagine you'd like him, you'd hang out with that guy
yeah,
because he hung out with all the people he wasn't supposed to. He did all the things. He broke the laws that he wasn't supposed to break, and then he he was like, I have authority to do this, and I think this is what I say: like atheists make better Christians,
yeah,
and sometimes I'm like maybe the people who are kicked out or cast out, not part of the in crowd, maybe they're the ones who got it, who got the whole point. Because as I read Jesus, the whole point was love. And that's what you said at the beginning. That's still a true principle to you. And it's like, so I don't care how you get there. I don't care you're atheist, you're agnostic, you're a progressive Christian, whatever you are, or even a fundamentalist.
yeah,
If your core point is love, and you know how to just be a human who embodies love, you got it.
yeah. Yeah, I would if I met Jesus, that is one of the things I would love to do if I could travel in time. I'd wanna go back and just say, like, who is he really, if he
Mm,
really existed and it's not a made
mhm.
up, completely made up. Like, what was he like every day? And then, obviously I don't believe in any of the miracle stuff, but I would be like, "Hey, Jesus, can
Exactly.
you do something with this?"
Yeah, there's this
It's like
reel
a
that's like, if
party
Jesus showed
favor.
up at your front door, what would you ask him? And this guy, he's like, holds up his water bottle, like, mm.
Do it, Jesus. Well, I think that was another thing that really that I just noticed, right? Because I mean, I can look around and not to regale this point over and over, but I have friends right now who are Christian and they're absolutely miserable. They're
Mhm,
tormented. I can tell, I can see it that they're tormented. Um, and just struggling emotionally and struggling through life. And I keep, I don't ask this unless I'm really close with them and I can ask it, but I'll say things like in my mind, don't you have Jesus in your heart?
mm.
Like according to your belief? And
Mm,
why isn't he helping
mm,
your life be better at all? Like, how is it that Jesus is very apparently selective and he's only helping the TV preacher get rich and be, what it's like I couldn't wrap my mind around that because I had a
mhm,
church of 300 people. So, I didn't have a mega church, but I mean, 300 people's decent size showing up every Sunday and their lives were just a mess. Now, not
mhm,
all of them, clearly, they're not all of them, but just a big majority of them were
mhm,
just in utter shambles. And I
mhm,
kept thinking, if God really like, if you're thirsty, right? If you're dehydrated or thirsty, an IV or drinking a bunch of fluid or Gatorade or whatever will work. 100% of the time for every person, right?
Mhm.
You're
Mhm.
dehydrated, you go and get an IV and it will rehydrate you, right?
Mhm.
But with Jesus, it's like, well, Jesus helped this one guy who gave the testimony in Sunday night service, but then there's, 299 other people here who have not had Jesus help them. Like, why is it,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? It's like an
Mhm.
IV will help hydrate you, period, because it's true. It works. It's what it is. But
Mhm.
Jesus doesn't seem to, not everybody who has Jesus has their shit together.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
just find that, and I know the Christian answer because I can hear it over here on my other, well, you got to have enough faith and you got to, submit yourself to his will when you got to,
And they're all just excuses to not own the truth that it's not working.
yeah. If you don't get healed, it wasn't God. I used to say that, and I'm just ashamed of that. But I used to
Mm.
say, well, it ain't God. We know it's not God. He's perfect. How have you broke down that communication with God? What's sin in your life? What do you have hidden secrets that you need to let
Mhm.
go of? What person do you need to
Mhm.
forgive in your life? It's all about what you got to do in order to
Mhm.
get the hose hooked up to Jesus to be able to get the magic.
Well, that was the exact hamster wheel that I kept running that drove me into psychosis because I was like, if I've got to develop a sinless character to get into heaven, but I was also told that it wasn't through any work of my own, it was through surrender, through Christ, his work in me, all of that. And so I would like pray and pray and pray and surrender. What does that mean? Plead with God. I did everything I could to the point of losing my sanity. And yet I still, by my judgment, was sinning.
Yeah.
I would still feel irritated or feel resentment. And then I would think, well, now just whose fault is this? But it can't be God's, right? Because he's God, he's perfect.
Right.
And so I must be messing up, but I'm like, I'm checking all the boxes, So I'm like, is he not doing his work in me? Like, is he like out of commission today? Did he break down? Does he need to go in for repairs? Like,
Right.
am I not saying the right words? And that's when it all started to fall apart. But
Yeah.
and for me, in a way, it's like I say there's versions of God. And it's like, well, maybe that version fell apart. And I know you and I take a little different perspective on this, where I more am I don't even like the word believe because I'm like, we don't have to believe in something that is, but I sense mystery. I
Yeah.
sense something bigger, something beyond. I sense love, some sense of purpose, but there's certainly also chaos. I certainly don't have answers for it all. But what to me, one of the biggest points, if I look at the stories of Jesus, was that he unshamed people who were being shamed.
Yeah.
And in my work as a coach, that's transformative, is to unshame people, for
Yeah.
them to actually feel it and to feel a new identity, that they don't have a shame identity anymore. And so, and so you say, like, well, hey, there's all these Christians, they've invited Jesus into their heart, it's not working for them. And it's like, well, maybe that was a version, that. And maybe Jesus isn't a literal dude. He's not this literal guy coming into your heart. Because how can he come in? You have to take a bite of him.
Right.
Then you have a bite of him in your heart.
Right.
But
Plus,
if
he
it's
died
this
2,000 years ago.
message, he died 2,000 years ago. So the only way to have him, well, now he's decomposed. You'd have to find the dirt, I guess. So take
Yeah.
a bite. But what if it's this message, the experience of being unshamed?
Yeah.
And I can show you from the Bible too, where it says, um, even those who've never heard the name of Jesus, when they like when they intuitively do what they know is right, it's the same as like accepting Jesus. And so I'm like, I don't think the whole thing is about saying his name or going to some faith or praying some prayer. It's about the inner experience of being unshamed, finding our true identity, like our source within us.
Yeah.
And that's what changes lives. And atheists get it better, more straight than Christians do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in my healing journey when I was very ill, the part of the story that I don't talk about a lot because it's not what I do here on YouTube. I was in prayer and healing school. So the school I went to actually had a prayer and healing school that was open pretty much 24/7, and you could go and get prayed for, anointed with oil, and prayer and healing school. It was to help you receive your healing.
Hmm.
And I remember I was going to this class every day and just feeling more and more condemned, more and more shamed because I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I receive this healing? And it
Mm,
wasn't
mm.
until I had a friend of mine that said, maybe it has nothing to do with any of that. Maybe you should just change how you eat.
No, it couldn't be that.
And I was like, no, it's not that. It's something God.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual. It's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's what did it. I ended up. I stopped going to prayer and healing school, and I started learning and understanding food better. And I thought, oh, you mean eating ice cream and ding dongs and Twinkies and pizza and McDonald's and and Burger King and all that for every meal all the time? Like maybe it's that, and it's not the devil, And that's what happened. I was very ill. I was ill for about 6 months, and
Mm,
and ended up being prescribed about 7 to 8 medications that I was taking.
mm, mm,
And when
hmm,
I got this epiphany from my friend, I thought, maybe I'm not even at all looking at this the right way. So, the
mm,
rest is history. I changed. I went hardcore vegan. I quit eating sugar. I mean, I went hardcore. I stopped pop, drinking, colas and stuff. And within 6 weeks, I was completely well.
in Jesus' name.
Yeah, in Jesus' name. And got off all the medications, all of that stuff, and
Uh-huh.
and that probably was a a little thing to begin my deconstruction process.
Mm,
This is
a
way
chink,
back.
a chink in
Yeah,
the
a
armor.
little chink because I thought, "Man, I did," like you said, I did all the right things. I knew I didn't have sin in my life. I wasn't doing anything bad. I had forgiven everybody that I needed to forgive. I asked
Mhm.
forgiveness from everybody I needed to, I was like
Mhm.
righting all my wrong. I was doing everything I could. I
Mhm.
was desperate. I mean, I felt like I was dying.
Mm,
My biological father died at 37. I'm
mm,
56, right? So I was under this impression like, "Oh my gosh, you know what? Like, I'm gonna die unless I can figure this out." And I didn't, even then when I was a Christian, I gave God all the credit for all of that. But, now I realize, well, yeah, but there was no change until I made changes in what I was doing in
mhm.
the natural physical world. It's like that farmer when the neighbor came by and said, "Man, look what God's doing to your farm." He said, "Yeah, you should have seen it when God had it all to himself." In other words, it looked like shit. Uh, he's like, I'm doing this.
I did
I'm
that.
doing this. Yeah, like this is me.
Mm,
And when that registered in my mind and in my heart that, oh, it's it's up to me. Like I have to do this. Jesus can't do this. God can't do this. Nobody can do this. Only I can do this. Then I started, having those thoughts of, well, if I have to do it, then what part does God play here? And then
well,
it
and
just
I
really started breaking down. Then I'm like, well,
yes.
is there a God? And like I say
Yeah.
all the time, I'm atheist as it relates to the Bible God. I definitely don't believe in that.
Uh-huh.
But I'm
Uh-huh.
agnostic in the sense of, is there some supreme being out there? Well, how
Mhm.
could I know that? I
Mhm.
don't know that, and
Mhm.
I would never claim to
Mhm.
know that. So
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
about that, I'm like, "Well, I'm atheist as it relates to
Mhm.
the God. I'm sure
Mhm.
that guy doesn't exist, he's horrible.
Mhm.
But is there something out there? How could I know? I don't know. Even Richard Dawkins, I think, considers himself atheist, but like an agnostic atheist, meaning,
Mhm.
"Oh, there's a lot of things I don't know, so."
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think Christians tend to think that atheist means that you're certain that there is no God. I think that might even be the dictionary definition. But in reality, when I talk to atheists, it's more like you take the null hypothesis, where you're like, just looking at all the data points you're giving me, I simply lack being convinced. I'm
Yeah.
just simply not convinced of this.
Well,
So, and I
the
think in that story, you're hitting on something really big, which is that having faith or Christianity can delay delays care. My background is nursing. This is something we talk about, delaying care. And I relate with what you're saying. Or I remember praying and praying and praying for change in my marriage. Things were just going really badly in my marriage. And praying and praying and praying, praying, pleading, pleading, pleading. And my brain kept thinking of logical things I could do to change what was going on in my marriage. But it didn't feel right. Like it felt like a violation of my faith to take practical action. And finally, one day, I basically was like, well, fuck that. I'm going to do something. And what do you know? It changed. And
Yeah.
I'm actually still in my same marriage. It's going really well today.
Yeah.
So it's, and this is something I wish I could scream from the mountaintops to say, there are good points to Christianity. But being a Christian is not just neutral, it's often very, very negative, and there are profound, detrimental, even devastating effects associated with it. And if like as a nurse, if we have medications, there's going to be warnings on some of them, like warnings on chemotherapy. You got to get two nurses to sign it off and do all these double checks. I wish we did that with religion,
Yeah.
because you go in thinking, oh, there's so many promises, so many claims, and it is just absolutely not all positive. It can be profoundly. I work with people in their 80s who has destroyed their whole life,
Yeah.
and that does not get talked about enough.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very difficult for people. We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we talked kind of in prep for the show. I didn't really ever struggle with the fear of hell and all of that when I started deconstructing. At the very beginning, I did. At the very beginning, like, what if I would just kept asking the questions, and I'm so rational now. It's like, well, there's zero evidence to support this claim. It's literally why they call it faith. It's like you have to take the claim. Like, for example, I just said this on a show the other day. I could tell you, Kristi, I have a purple dragon in my backyard. It's crazy. It's whatever. And you should just take it on faith and believe that I have one and start telling other people that Timmy has a dragon as you. You would
Is the
demand
dragon's name
proof.
Barney?
Right, exactly. You wouldn't believe it. You would be like,
Mhm,
Timmy,
mhm,
you have
mhm,
lost your mind,
mhm,
right? Now, if I took
mhm,
you in the backyard and be like, see it? It's right there.
mhm.
And then you're like, no, I don't see it. I'm like, well, you got to believe it first. You gotta have faith to see it, right? And you're like, I just don't see it, Timmy. I just don't see it. Well, you wouldn't believe it. But with God, it's like he gets a hall pass. People by the billions around the world believe in this, what I would say is a mythical, made up, man made, which religion is definitely man made. We all know that. Even people that are spiritual and not religious, they are like, well, yeah, of course, religion's made up. It's so clear to see. But you require evidence to believe in whatever you believe in, just like I do in normal day life. I'm not going to take someone's just word on, especially when it's a salacious, right? Some salacious, like there's
Mhm,
a purple dragon in my backyard. It's like, well,
mhm,
A, there are no
mhm,
dragons. So B, how
mhm,
could you have one in your backyard? And why are you the only one that can see it? Or anybody
mhm,
else that you've pulled into your delusion and they go, yeah, I can see it. And you're like, really? I was kind of kidding. I don't see it really.
mhm,
you
mhm,
know, but again, with God, it's nope, it's true. And they just take it on
mhm,
faith. And that's fine.
mhm,
The Bible sets it up that way, or at least how we've interpreted it today, that, without faith, it's impossible to please God. Well, I want to please God, so I guess I'm going to just believe he exists. Though anything that's ever been
and
great in my life, I've done it, or someone else has done it for me, right? God has never literally done something for me. I can't tell you how many times I've prayed to
mm,
win the freaking lottery, or
mm,
I've prayed to,
mm,
like I've
mhm,
prayed for things all my life.
mm.
And it was never like a magical thing that really was like, wow, that was clearly, I cannot explain that.
And
It's
when
always
I remember when it really hit me that the word believe, ironically, has the concept baked right into it that there's very good reason logically not to believe in this thing.
right.
Like this chair, this white chair behind me here, I
Yeah.
don't believe in it. It's just there.
It's there.
The
Right.
only reason I would have to
And I see
believe
it.
in something is because there's reasons not to believe it. And yet, if yes, if I told you there's an orange cat sitting in this chair, well, there simply isn't. But then to make a club of people who are morally superior because they believe in the invisible orange cat, and
Yeah.
you and I, we never thought we'd be here having this conversation,
Right.
did we?
I never
But
did.
what woke me up was going through psychosis, where essentially, imagine taking all these religious types of thoughts about God speaking to you, all of that, just put it on steroids, crank the volume up, constant.
Yeah.
It's called religious psychosis. And when I was going through that, all the religious people in my life were telling me, well, just stop thinking those thoughts. If those thoughts come up, don't believe them. And I was like, but there's no line. There's no line between your religious thoughts and mine. They're just to a degree further.
Right.
And you call this psychosis and you call yours faith. And
Right.
this is wild to me. Okay, so you're talking about a God who, in theory, gave people dreams and visions and callings and asked them to do things and answers prayers and talks to them. And I'm telling you, I'm feeling this, I'm experiencing this, this is happening. You're calling it psychosis or demon possession. That was even more fun.
Right.
And yet, in your faith that you claim, you don't even have stuff happening. And you're telling me that I have mental illness and I need to be like you. And that's when
Right.
I was like, checking my bags at the door.
Yeah.
That your own Bible says your young men shall dream dreams and your old men shall have vision and all flesh shall prophesy. And yet when I do that, you call it mental illness.
Yeah.
I don't know what you have going on in your religion, but see ya.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you, because I view Christianity as a delusion, clearly I think it's a delusion. I
It's
think
like a
it's,
mass psychosis.
yeah. And I believe it's a mind virus. Have you seen the movie The Village? Oh
No.
my gosh, you got to see it. You got to see it today by Shyamalan, whatever that one guy is, the director that's famous, but it's called The Village. It gives you the perfect picture in a motion picture of the Christian life. It's long story short, it's basically a village that has borders, and it seems like it's way back in like the early 1900s. It's like, the girls wear bonnets and have long hair, and like it's certain thing. It seems old school. And I don't want to give too much of a spoiler alert, but it's modern day in real life in the rest of the world, but they're just in this tiny village in the middle of a national forest that's been protected. So no one can come in and they don't allow anyone to leave. And they say that there's monsters out in the forest. This is basically like this is the world. This is the world. And someone in the village decides to test that theory, and basically they escape. This doesn't give it away, but it's like they escape, and then all of a sudden they realize that, whoa, they're in a special reserved protected national forest in the middle of like Dallas, Texas. But
I read a novel similar to that called The
crazy.
Girl Behind the Red Rope. It's essentially the
Ooh,
same
same
storyline
concept.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's similar to Truman Show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Truman Show's
Yeah.
another one that I give a lot of shout out to, because and I
Uh-huh.
was just there where they filmed that in Seaside,
Oh.
Florida, actually.
Oh.
Um, and I wanted to film an episode there, but
Yeah.
it just couldn't work. It was hard. There was too many people, a lot of things going on. But yeah, the Truman Show is a great example. His reality was just that world. And it was when he escaped, that's how I felt when I left fundamental religion. It was like, oh my gosh, I got out of the village or out of the dome, and there's a
Mhm.
whole world out
Mhm.
here. And
Mhm.
it's not
Mhm.
all bad.
Mm-mm.
But some of the,
Mm-mm.
like you said earlier, some of the nicest, most well-adjusted, happy
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
were non-believers, which I
Mhm.
couldn't. Still to this day, even I sometimes think, how is, like, even me, how am I still happy? How am I happier?
Mm. Mm.
How am I more
You
moral,
can't even
more
make sense
ethical?
of it.
It
Mhm.
it still doesn't make sense to me. I still had I had a conversation with my neighbor yesterday, and we were laughing because he saw one of my videos, and he was asking me questions, and I said, "Bro, no one is more shocked than me. Like I can't tell you how shocked I am that I no longer believe in this God. It's just crazy. And it's just wild. But
Well, remember they would tell me like the pleasures of sin are fleeting for a season, and one of our sins was wearing makeup. And when I started wearing makeup, I really thought it brought me so much joy. I was like, the day is going to come that this pleasure is going to flee away. And
yeah.
I put my makeup on this morning and still felt phenomenal years later. That's mind blowing because
Yeah.
that the pleasures of sin are fleeting. So one day I'm sure it's going to flee away, but today
Yeah.
wasn't that day.
Yeah, the proof is it's in the pudding, right? I there's really no way, if you're a Christian watching this, I get it. You can't see it, and it's not because, we're brighter than you or something. It has nothing to do with that, because when I was a Christian, I was just incapable of seeing it. It's just like Truman.
Yes.
Truman
Yes.
Truman could
100%.
not, until he did. He could not see that he was in a dome.
Yes.
He couldn't
Yes.
see. This was life.
Yeah.
This was what it
Yep.
was,
Yep.
and that's all that it was,
Yep.
until he escaped and was like, "Oh, this is just a dome in the middle of this greater experience, called the human
Mhm.
experience," and it just brought so much clarity. And so, I mean, that was my journey. Is
And the wild
my
thing is
eyes
that
were opened.
when we were in the faith, we were taught to love and to witness to people, to save them. But we were taught to love them. And I look at it now and it's like I see people suffering because of their faith, because of their thoughts and beliefs. And I wish I could rescue them from that, but they can't see it. I can't make them see it. But what I can do is love them and love them right where they are. And it's just an incredible feeling now to think I don't have to save them from anything. There's no Satan, no hell I have to save them from. I can simply love them because I can see what they're going through. And I think most people watching this are probably somewhere either leaving or outside of the Christian faith. And I want us all to hear that loud and clear. Th- these people, it's easy to get irritated because we were there and we know what we went through, but they need love.
Yeah,
They're going through it, and
yeah,
we can be there for them.
yeah. So let's hear because I told everybody we're going to do a little bit of role playing. Let's kind of switch gears, and I'll act like your client, and I'm in the beginning stages of questioning things, and just let's just riff it here.
Let's go.
Hi, Kristi.
Hi,
I
Timmy.
I'm a pastor, and I'm starting to have doubts about the truth of what I've been preaching, and I'm struggling with this whole idea of heaven and hell, and I can't wrap my mind around how my neighbor who's Hindu is going to be doomed to hell, which is what I am supposed to believe, but I'm really struggling with that. I don't see how I'm going to go to heaven and this guy's going to go to hell, and he's such a kind, caring, wonderful person. I don't know what to do. I'm a part of this religious fundamental faith that believes you have to accept Jesus to go to heaven, but I don't think it's true. And I'm really struggling with this, and I don't know what to do about it.
Hmm. Yeah. What do you feel like some of your biggest fears are? Do you have fears coming up in your questioning or when you're doubting?
I want to pursue truth. I want to know what is true. And I currently am teetering on, I thought that the Bible was truth. But the
Hmm.
more I read it, the more it's just clearly, obviously not the truth, and I struggle with the whole idea of like the Bible seems to support slavery. I used to try to teach around that and make that make sense, and, make things that didn't make sense, like the mysteries belongeth to the Lord. But now I'm not feeling that that's fair. Like that's not right to say
Mm-hmm.
those things when it just doesn't seem true. But then I don't want to be sinning and miss
Mm-hmm.
the rapture. Jesus is
Mm-hmm.
coming back at any moment. I want to make sure I'm ready. I don't want to go to hell forever.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is a big thing on the line here, because I could
Mm-hmm.
be throwing away my faith and end up in hell.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're bringing up a lot of different points here. And I think one of the things I want to hit on is that you're a pastor. And so your employment is contingent on being a pastor. Maybe you'd have to take care of your family. You don't want them to starve. So you've got to think about that. But if we zoom out a little bit further about the questions that you're asking, the word true. Well, what does true mean? The church taught us truth meant a doctrinal belief, but true actually means something that is. It's like an actual factual reality. And so truth isn't what we were taught at church. True means something that exists. And so think about hell, for instance. Well, it's this idea that there's this place that you could go for eternal punishment if you're not saved, if you don't go to heaven. But first of all, when you look up the Greek and Hebrew words in Bible that are translated into English as hell, there's like 6 different words and they all mean different things. They
Yeah.
didn't get translated into one word until King James did that. And it has to do with a novel called Dante's Inferno. So
Yeah.
it's not even in the Bible. But furthermore, the Bible is a book. It's one book that is called scripture. And there's many, many books throughout human history called scripture that are different religions. So, how did it come to be that you believe the Bible and your denomination was correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all I've ever known. My life was spent in a home that was religious. My parents are Christian. My family is all Christian. All my peers are Christians. All the books I read are Christian, and I live in the Midwest. And so it's so common for me to meet neighbors and people that also believe in this God. But man, I'm really starting to think it's potentially not true and that it's something I just believe because I was raised to believe this way and I was just this way. And that's what also I struggle with because I look at my Hindu friends or Buddhist friends and they're living great lives. But I always thought that you had to be a Christian to live a good life
Hmm.
because it's the truth. It's the one
Hmm.
true religion. All other religions are false. This one was this one is true, right? Like this is the one that's true, but I'm struggling with believing that because I'm living in this world and I'm seeing that I don't think it's true as I believe it.
Hmm. Yeah, sometimes I say I would ask this question and say, think about it this way. Um, if you're so lucky to be born into North America, into a good Bible believing Christian home, into the correct denomination, is it more likely that you're going to make it to heaven than someone born in the wrong country into a Muslim home? Do some people have a better odds at making it to heaven? And if some people have a better odds of getting there, then is your God really loving? Is he all powerful? And
Yes.
and if that's not the case, if everyone has same chance or odds of making it to heaven, then what's the point in going to another country to do missionary work or to tell somebody about Jesus? Why are you doing that?
Right. Yeah, those are good questions because I man, it's sometimes hard to tap into that Christian brain of mine. I think at the time I would have said something like, well, that is exactly why we must tell everyone so they can hear the truth. Of course, now I find the is it the hubris or the arrogance of that,
You
because
choke a
God,
little when a
yeah,
little bit
God
of
gave
vomit in
me,
your mouth.
yeah, like God saw fit to have me be born in the right place, in the right conditions, under the right religion. And it seems unfair, because I would say that, because I think of scriptures that pop to my mind that God's no respecter of persons. God's no respecter of persons, and God's so loved the world that He sent His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him. So it's like it's for everybody, and I can't explain why I was so lucky to have been in the right place at the right time in the right family to get all of this, and that's part of the struggle. Like that's part of what I'm wrestling with. Like, okay, so
Mhm.
I was born heterosexual.
Mhm.
Lucky me,
Mhm.
because my friend
Mhm.
over here, he was
Mhm.
born gay.
No, he wasn't. We know people aren't born gay now, Timmy.
Right, exactly. And probably that was the first thing that fell for me. That was the first thing that I
Oh.
just could not wrap my mind around because I was lucky enough to have a lot of gay friends growing up.
Mm. Mm.
And that was the first theological shift that I made in my journey.
Mm. Mm.
Is I
Mm.
was like, there is no way God made them gay and then said, but don't be gay.
Yeah, okay, so I dated a gay guy in college.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he was my best friend, and we're actually still best friends. We had like a 15-year break there where first he kind of got out of the toxic cycle, and then I got out, and then we meet again.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you got to have someone close to you go through that. Now, I don't know if you ever got onto the history of how the word gay or homosexual even came into the Bible, but it's new. Like it came
Yes.
in like in the 40s, 50s, and
Yes.
it's just shaky origins. And the evangelical church weren't concerned about that at all until about the 80s.
Right. Right.
You know, the whole concept of even having a sexual orientation
Right.
didn't exist in American culture until the 1900s.
Isn't that crazy?
And yet we take this all the way back to creation. Oh, God made Adam and Eve. And it's like, no, 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 no. You invented this whole problem in the last 50 years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not to mention that we know absolute with certainty that Adam and Eve weren't the first two humans created by God 6,000 years ago.
Well, even
Yeah, that
linguistically, it's a poem. Genesis is poetry.
right, not to be taken
If the
literally.
talking snake doesn't give it away, I don't know what was going to tip you off.
Right, talking snake, talking donkeys. Yeah.
What
Uh,
were you looking for to tip you off to poetry?
well, that was part of the problem, Christy, is that, I was a literalist, meaning that
Yeah.
everything in the Bible was literally true.
Also a
And
teaching that's been
so
around for 300 years.
right, right. That's the other thing that as a Christian, I remember I thought Matthew wrote Matthew, Mark wrote Mark, Luke
A
wrote
dude
Luke.
named Mark.
And, all it takes is a little bit of inquiry to find out that no, like, again, that is absolutely not true. And I
Mhm,
would have fought
mhm.
someone tooth and nail that it was true. And you talk to even people who are Christian that are Bible scholars, they're like, yeah, no. It's like they were like, well, yeah, no, that's not to be taken literal. And that was just so shocking to me. I was like, oh my gosh, like this person still believes in God, even believes in Jesus and believes in certain things, but they know the facts. They're like,
Yeah,
no, yeah, no, the earth
yeah,
is ancient. It's
yeah,
4 point whatever,
yeah.
4.5 billion years old. And
Oh,
evolution is like a
that gives
thing.
me like a little pain in my back hearing you say that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
The evolution, now that's even newer. I would say I didn't start believing in evolution until probably a couple years ago, where
yeah.
now I didn't necessarily, I mean, it was all gradual for me, I realized that, oh gosh, maybe these things were just clearly, I mean, they're written by men, just imperfect human beings that are what I think the Bible is, honestly,
Right.
what I think it is, it's back when people didn't know where rain comes from, what mental illness was, what epilepsy was, well, you just, it's God or it's the devil. It's demon possession. That's what
Right.
epilepsy is. Demon. Well, then once we found out, no, 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 it's like a mental issue. It's a
Mhm,
wiring problem.
mhm,
It's like, oh, so it's not a demon possession thing that you can just pray and cast the demons out. It's like, no, no, it might
mhm,
require medication, therapy. It might require a lot of things, but
mhm.
no, this isn't a demon that has made them have epilepsy.
Well, and what's funny is the word demon comes from the word daemon, which was the old word for energy, like an emotion essentially.
Yeah,
And we that slowly morphed into this concept of Satan's angels.
yeah,
But ancient Jews they didn't have like a Satan in their cosmology. That didn't come in until Greek thought entered the picture more or less. And
right,
so it's the amazing thing to me is in my journey, the more I understand about the origins of not only the Bible but religion, thought, history, science, all of that, it totally tore down the old way of thinking about things. But what do you know, it makes sense. It's like, yeah, okay, I get how you got there. Like, okay, so do you want to say the Bible's inspired? Well, we were taught inspired means like God breathed these
right.
words, like God, God who? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't what it but when I see a sunset, I can say I feel inspired. So
Oh,
maybe these
yeah.
people are having these, experiences in their heart, or things they're attributing to something beyond them, like you're saying. And essentially it's their journal, and they felt inspired to write these words. And then 300 years after Jesus was here, a group of men got together about power and control and voted which pieces would be kept and what would be kicked out.
Yeah.
And the kicked out pieces we call the Gnostic Gospels, and they talk about the power inside of us.
Right.
Funny how those ones got the boot.
Well, and it's also so funny. I talked to a pastor, a pastor of a mega church. He's a friend of mine. He pastors a Methodist church here in Kansas City. And when I was talking to him, because he kind of helped me leave the fundamental world in my gradual deconstruction process, and he helped me understand because he's just an intellectual. And so he didn't think that, Hindus went to hell. He didn't think that to be gay was wrong. And, so it was very, I don't know what you would call it, but he was very liberal in his theology and in his understanding. And he understood
Mm-hmm.
the earth was
Mm-hmm.
ancient and evolution is real. And none of that stuff bothered him because he was able to put that together under his
Mm-hmm.
idea of God and everything. And it really helped me understand that, oh, there is another way to look at this. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of this stuff is a newer invention, like hell,
Mm-hmm.
being gay, and all these things. This is a more modern interpretation. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't what they were talking about back in 500
Yeah.
or in the year 1000 or 1200. Of like there was even edits and updates to the Bible as late as or as early as like the 1800s. And
Mm-hmm.
people today, Pentecostals, like, it's the Bible. If the Bible says it, I believe it. That is it. It's right there.
The
It's
King
God's
James.
holy word. And they're saying all this, and you're like, yeah, do you know a monk added that whole chapter back in the year 1742? Like, it's like, how is that? Do you realize how many years later that is? Like, I can't remember what
Do you
someone
know
said a month
King
ago.
James wrote the Encyclopedia of Demonology too?
Oh, brother.
Maybe we should take a little study of that.
That's crazy, man.
And the guy had slaves. That was in the nature of kings in that day. And so, even if you want to say he had the best of intentions, i- i- there's different ways to translate the same words. If you know anything about languages, they can like take different forms. So
Yeah.
you have this mindset of being a patriarchal society who owns slaves. Well, what if you just bend it a little bit in favor of that direction?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but then the problem was I got a concordance when I was 13. I was that kid. I was
Yeah.
looking stuff up, and it's like,
Me
oh,
too.
this is not what they told us. No, this is not
Yeah.
what they said it was. And it's like, what do you do with that? But I also had actually have a very progressive pastor, who when I was deconstructing, I would text him, and I was deconstructing the Old Testament, and I thought he was gonna rein me back in and convince me, and he just pushed me off the cliff. It was like it was the best thing.
Well, the Bible, I mean, I've said this in a video. The people ask, what got you to start questioning or walking away? I'm like, I read the Bible.
I
Like
read the
I
Bible.
really started studying it, not for what,
Yeah.
with no, the first thing I had to do though, is had to say, okay, none of it's true. Let's just start there.
Mm,
I'm a brand new person. I have no preconceived notions, ideas, and thoughts. Now I'm
just a
going to
book.
read it and I'm going to study it. And I'm going to see what it actually says. And I'm not going to
Mm,
do the
mhm.
mental gymnastics anymore to make sense of things that just don't make sense. And I'm just going to read it. And that's when it became, it just was clear. I mean, and we all know that humans did write it. There's no other way. God's never written anything in all of the existence of whatever. Like, it's not like there was this guy in the sky and this book came flying down, and we have video
Right,
evidence, proof of
right.
that's how it
You got to go
came.
to Mormonism for that one.
Exactly. Right. And as a Christian, I thought Mormonism was a cult and it was crazy and it was nuts. It was so goofy. And here I am
But we know
believing
Timmy
all
had
the.
it right.
Yeah, I had it right though. And yeah, it was literally reading it, studying it, and digging into it that it really began to fall apart. It
Yes.
really
Yeah.
began to fall apart. And
When
when
did that
I'm
start for you, when that was really falling apart? I mean, did it coincide with your deconstruction? Because sometimes that stuff can take, like, decades.
so I was one of those Christians who actually read the Bible. I actually read the
Yeah.
Bible. I had a concordance. I had a
Mhm.
thesaurus. I mean, I had
Mhm.
I had all the commentaries.
It's where it goes south every
Recently
time.
just sold one of I had a real expensive commentary set, and I just sold it
Oh.
a little bit earlier this year. That was even hard to let go of because it was, plus the books looked cool. They're the old books,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yes,
like I was a
yes.
genuine
A
studier.
vintage
I
library.
really
Yes.
read and studied, and my first
Yes.
step out of where I was is to go, what if I'm wrong in my perspective
Mm,
of the Bible? Now, I was still totally a Christian, but
mm.
I thought, well, I've met other Christians that have other ideas and thoughts that are different from mine. I had Christian friends who thought it was okay to be gay, and they had a different understanding of it. And I was like, well, what if they're right and I'm wrong? Like, what it like, because I'm thinking I'm right and they're wrong. Well, surely I
Hence why
can't be
you're
right.
supposed to live in a bubble.
Well, that was just it. I'm a rational thinker, and I thought, okay,
Yeah.
if I'm thinking they're wrong and I'm right, surely there's someone else who's right and I'm wrong.
Mhm.
That there's no
Mm,
way I
mm,
am right. That's
mm,
why I laugh at
mm.
the Christians that make comments. By the way, cuss and discuss below. I know you will. I know you'll comment. Even you Christians, I appreciate it. And I just laugh sometimes. I read their what they say, and I'm thinking, oh, you're the one that's right. You're the one that's right. And here you are with 2 subscribers on your YouTube channel, and you have the ultimate truth figured out for the universe. You know what God apparently
But
meant.
Timmy, straight is the gate and narrow is the way. Like, is
Right.
there's three total lip stacks.
That's right. And they're always one of those people. I always
Yeah.
laughed at myself. Narrow is the way, only few people can enter in. Of course, I'm one of
I
those.
being one of them.
I am clearly one of the God's elect, one of God's special people.
Egocentricism, the first ingredient of the Christian cake.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had that conversation. My family's still very Christian, like
Mhm.
my parents and stuff. And
Mm.
and my dad will say things like, "Well, the Bible says," and I'm like, "Dad, like I can't even tell you how that alone is a podcast worthy of discussion
Ah,
because that if that's true, then you have to take all of it. If you're a literalist, that means you got to take all of it. Then you got to 100% agree that God's a murderer, that he killed people, and that he wants us to enslave people. Like you can't flip out of that being true. If you're a
well, and
literalist
you
and
need to
believe in
have
the
your
Bible,
dad over next Saturday and stone him if he's going anywhere because that's the Sabbath day, dude, and you gotta stone them.
see, yeah, it's even Christians who think that they're taking the word straight from the Bible. No, you're picking and
No,
choosing.
no, no,
You're
no.
clearly picking and choosing. Everybody's picking and choosing different things. I remember talking to a guy that literally was in the midst of an affair. He was in the midst of an affair, and he literally said to me, "Well, but it's just wrong to be gay and to, you know."
Hello?
I'm like, dude, you're literally in the midst of an adulterous extramarital affair, and you're
And
still gonna say that gay is wrong? Like, get a fucking life, bro.
it's psychology again, and it has to do with dissociation
Yeah.
because it's easier to dissociate from his own crap and project out blame onto someone else than to own his own story.
Yeah. So you said that the hell was the big one, the lowest hanging fruit, and I agree. That's the one that I hear the most from people that
Mm,
watch my
mhm,
videos.
mhm,
What else? Are there a couple others that are up there with
mhm,
that? I know another probably a low
mhm.
hanging fruit is, all their family is Christian and they get a lot of pushback and their family tries to save them and preach to them, and it really strains the relationship. It strained my relationship with my
Oh,
folks for a
yeah,
while until
100%.
I had I call it because this is the world I come out of. I called it the come to Jesus talk. And I just had a real come to Jesus talk with my parents and say, listen, it's my life. It's my choice. I don't try to convert you to atheism. why are you continuing to trying to convert me and to save me when
Mm.
I'm allowing you to believe what you want to believe? And I'm asking you to allow me to believe what I want to believe. And of course, I know right in their minds, but we don't want you to go to hell.
Yes.
We want to be with
Yeah.
you forever in heaven.
Yeah.
And
Oh, and it's so painful because they're in pain over that thought because they love you. And I remember feeling like I caused them that pain. And then it hit me. I said, no, I didn't. I'm choosing the way I live my life. Their belief system caused that pain.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Any
that's
other big ones that you see that seem to be fairly common? And I know that, you and I differ. I stopped going to church about a year ago, and not that I'll never go. My wife and I have talked about going to a candlelight Christmas Eve service just because
mm,
it's
hmm
beautiful. It's,
yeah.
for
Yeah.
obviously as an atheist, like none of it is God to me, but it's just, I love candles. I love music. I love beautiful stained glass.
Yeah.
I can appreciate
Yeah.
all the aesthetics
Yeah.
of it. And
Yeah.
even sense of, I sense a feel of, community, and we're singing together and all that stuff. I just like, I don't connect that to God. I just connect that to,
Mm,
these are beautiful
mhm.
voices. We got beautiful
Mhm.
aesthetics. This is
Mhm.
beautiful. So I'm not an atheist who would say I'll never darken the door of a church. Now I could never
Mhm.
go to a fundamental evangelical church. I couldn't do
You
that.
you know at an airplane, they have, like, the little vomit bag right in front of you?
Yes.
They
Yeah.
like, there's already the rack in the pew, like, for him, like,
Right.
it just, like, tuck that
Yeah. Please.
maybe you could go.
Vomit when I hear. But so for me, I stopped going to church, even though I was at a very liberal church was that good, believed in evolutions, things like that. But there were still times the preacher would say things towards the end, like not the traditional altar call, but kind of the altar call, that bow
Mm,
your head, close your eyes,
mhm,
service,
mm,
and would say
mhm.
things like, a life with God is the best life, or if you want to turn your life around, invite God in, and I'm just like,
Mm.
yeah, but that's literally not true. Like I'm sitting in the audience thinking, no, that's absolutely categorically not true. It's empirically false. And so I just couldn't continue to go. I
What
couldn't go.
what if you just started, like, shouting some things out from the pew here and there?
It's lies, lies.
So I still go to church, and sometimes I don't totally understand that incredibly progressive church, but they were singing "Mary, Did You Know" this week, and I had just this huge urge well up in me to go. She wasn't a virgin, wasn't a virgin,
Yeah.
might not have been real, wasn't a virgin, was not.
Humans don't have
Suppress it,
kids
Kristi.
without sex or infertile. Like she didn't have, what is it, in vitro or in vitro or whatever that, like that wasn't available back in Mary's day. So she was not a virgin, y'all.
I'm reading this book called Zealot, a good way to ruin your Christmas season, about the real deal, Jesus of Nazareth, and the little
Oh, the
teeny tiny bit.
Raza, what's his name?
Yes,
Yes.
Aslan.
Aslan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The little teeny tiny bit we know about the dude from history, and
Yep.
there's a Roman document that has his name as being crucified, and that's about what we have historically.
I think
Uh,
historically isn't there just like three things that we can say with some level of certainty ish? One, that he was Jewish. Two,
huh.
that he was an apocalyptic teacher.
Yeah, is that Josephus?
And then thirdly, I think the three things that we could say with some confidence, if indeed he did exist, there's no way to verify it, obviously. Thirdly, uh, he was crucified for
Sedition.
sedition. Yeah. And that's
Yes.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
And Aslan talks about and I learned a lot from him, actually. He was an early part of my deconstruction.
Oh,
And when
okay.
he said the man Jesus versus the Christ of faith,
Mm,
they're two different, they're two different. The actual, if he actually existed, the actual just person, and then there's what he has become to religious people, the Christ of faith, the one that turns water to wine, the ones that
mm,
heals blinded eyes, ones that do all this stuff. And that's curious, right? Because there's really two versions of this Jesus. There's the mystical Christ part of him, and then there's just the what he
Mhm.
actually was, which was
Mhm.
most likely
Mhm.
just a dude.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that could open up a whole other conversation in John 1, the logos, the ever present at creation, whatever that means. But in spirituality, there's the concept of Christ consciousness. And even in the Bible, let this mind be in you, which was in Christ. And to me, again, that all comes down to the embodiment of love and our own divinity, our own beauty, morality. This is what it was that we say that the man Jesus embodied, the Christ.
Yeah,
So okay, fascinating point from Aslan. He talks about how for so many reasons. No, Jesus was not born in Bethlehem, not
right,
in a manger, not
right,
by a virgin mother. But like historically, that's just completely off for so many reasons. But he says, okay, so did the authors write this as a lie? Was it deceit? Was it fiction? And he said, no, it was mythology because they went back in their scriptures and it says like out of the root of the branch of David, shall be born in Bethlehem your king, all of these things,
yeah,
he shall be born of a virgin. So they wrote that into the story to give assent for them to say he is our Messiah. But it was known in that day and age, it was known mythology. Everyone knew it didn't happen that way. it
right,
was like it was like reading Lord of the Rings.
right,
And that was the point. It was a symbol. It's kind of like Chronicles of Narnia. So
right.
but so and this is what I was going to say too. We have been taught religion in our Western world through the left hemisphere of our mind, that's logic, fact based. And so we're taught to read scripture like this is fact, this is true, the world was literally made this way. The right hemisphere of our mind is where we're spiritual, where we see beauty, poetry, encounter. And when you talk about going to Christmas Eve service, you're relating with the right hemisphere spiritual encounter. And the right hemisphere doesn't ask questions about literalness or fact. It has encounter. And I love that about you, Timmy, is that you see and understand the beauty of encounter without needing to know the questions of fact,
Yeah,
because the facts kind of fall apart and yet there's something there in encounter.
yeah,
So
yeah. And as a human, I am in awe. I have more awe of our world, and I'm more curious about things now. Rather than God did it. That's it. God did it.
uh-huh,
God made all the
uh-huh,
animals and then brought them before
uh-huh.
Adam to name them all, and all these ridiculous things. Uh, I just have more of an appreciation
Mm,
for how this world
mm, mm-hmm,
could have potentially, come into being,
mm-hmm,
how evolution works,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
how when people
mm-hmm.
go, "Oh, that's just a theory." It's like, yeah, but this took me a while to grasp this. I think it's why I was such a late believer in evolution, and not a believer. It's like it's true, right? I thought theory meant like a hypothesis, like they just literally science was just pulling this out of their ass.
Ah, uh,
And then when I learned that no, 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 the facts and the evidence have pointed us in this direction. This isn't like we're just pulling this out of thin air and saying
mm-hmm,
aliens did it. It's like
mm-hmm.
how the pyramids happened. Aliens did it. It's like, well, what evidence do we have for that other than it's a mystery? We don't know exactly how they did it back in the ancient times with limited tools, and like that. It is quite like, how did they do that, right?
Mm-hmm,
And so
mm-hmm.
when you look at the world, that which is even more unbelievable, it's like, well, how did humans? How did had to be God? It's like, well, okay, and then that just stops the inquiry. It stops.
Yeah,
You don't wanna ask any more
yeah,
questions,
yeah.
um, and
I
now I ask
remember
questions all the time.
I remember as a teenager craving, even as an older child, craving intellectual discussion, just really deep kind of philosophical thought.
Yeah,
And I never, I could almost taste the edges of it sometimes, but I never really felt satisfied. And now, like to pour into philosophy, and I don't know if you've gotten into quantum physics, it just
mhm,
satisfied me in a way I can't describe. And it opens up my mind to so much. It's like you said, just like this curiosity and wonder and taking in more information about what actually is and just opening up to more and more. It's just so satisfying.
yeah. I was telling one of my
Yeah.
friends who's a philosophy, I think he graduated with some degree in philosophy, and we were talking, and I said, "Well," he said, "You're kind of like a philosopher." I was like, "No, dude, I'm not intelligent enough to be a philosopher." He goes, "No, actually," I would challenge you on that. He said, You're a thinker, you have perspectives,
Uh-huh.
you can
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
pontificate, you can, you know, think through deep philosophical questions and about ethics, and I said, well, okay, I've just never considered myself an intellectual. I was just a dude that went to Bible college and then just regurgitated all of my tongues and all the stuff, just what I'd always been taught,
Mm,
and was fairly successful at it. I guess the average church
mhm,
in America is like 100 people, so the fact that I had 300 people was I guess for in the circles that I ran in, the circles that I
mhm,
ran in,
mhm.
the superstars were the ones with 1,000 people or more in their church, and that's
You were a good bullshitter.
yeah. And I was, yeah, and I believed it at the time because people asked me, "How could you teach those lies?" I'm like, "Well, I didn't know they were lies."
Yeah, right, right,
I
right.
mean, I was very sincere. Clearly, I was sincerely wrong, um, but I was believing it absolutely, unwavering. I believed it until it just started to crack.
The
And
math didn't math.
I dug into those cracks. I investigated
Mhm,
those cracks. I honestly, what I thought I was going to land on is I was just going to be spiritual, not religious, and
mhm,
and that's where I was going to live. I had started
mhm,
going to Buddhist temple a little bit here and there, and I but for me, it just the more I kept digging, the more I kept listening to philosophers, and the more I kept reading, uh, and even testing out these things in my everyday life, it finally just it was like that last little piece just dropped,
mm, mm,
and
mhm,
I said,
mhm,
"No, I don't." I remember the day I was like, "I'm not a Christian anymore," and that was hard to admit.
mhm,
I think I
mhm,
wasn't a Christian probably a good 6 months, maybe even a year before I actually said those
mm,
words, because that was like
mm,
a sin, right? It was gonna be a sin,
mm.
and then when I
But
said,
then did you
"I
feel
don't
a
believe,"
relief?
I did, it felt free. I felt like,
Yeah,
okay. Now
yeah,
I still believed in God, right, at that time, but I was like, "I'm not a Christian." And that's the time
yeah,
when I switched over and was like, "You know what?" I was saying things like, "All religions are the same, just different. It's like we're all crawling up the mountain from different sides, experiencing different things. At the end, we'll all get to the
mhm,
top and be like, 'Oh, wow, it's the same thing.'" Um, and I lived there for a good couple years. I was leading meditations. Believe it or not, I was doing meditations at a park, and I'd have, 30, 40 people show up to my meditations, guided meditations. And there was, and for me, it was just like something's like something isn't lining up for me, even in the spiritual realm, in the frame that I had it in, that there was a God that was listening to my prayers. I could speak things into existence. I was still believing in that. And I still believe in the use of our words is important. I still believe in speaking things like goals, and having a vision board, and I view it different now. I still journal, I still think, I still get ideas that come out of left field, but it wasn't God, it wasn't somebody from my past dead relative that's sending me some message through the fucking ethers, like,
it's
no.
you, you,
Yeah,
you, 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 you.
it's just me, right? It's just me. And there's actually an old Christian book that was written years and years ago, and it's entitled, the actual title of the book is, and I used to own it, "If it's going to be, it's up to me."
Mm,
And
mm,
that's actually more true today than ever before, because in church, you'd say, when people going through a hard time, you'd say, "Listen, brother, just let go and let God." It's like, okay, how I would explain that now, and why that's not a good idea, but also not necessarily bad, is, yeah, some things, when it's out of your control, guess what? It is just out of your control. There isn't anything you can do anyway. So by letting go of the worry, the fear, the shame, the guilt, let go of that and just control what you can control. And whatever's going to happen is just going to happen. There's no God in the universe that's going to be like, oh, Timmy wants a parking space, so I'm going to have this other person that's in the mall right now leave so that Timmy can get that front row spot. It's like,
You know
that's not how
Serenity's
this.
prayer. Give me the
Yeah,
courage
yeah, change
to
the things I can
change the
change.
things I can, accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. Like that says it all right there. And I don't know who Serenity was praying to, but it's a pretty good prayer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's yeah. You know, I've been accused. I've had people accuse me. Christians like he never really was a Christian. It's like, oh my
Oh,
gosh,
right.
shut the
Right.
fuck up. You don't know shit.
Did you meet me?
Back up, brother. So there's that, but also, I don't like being told like I don't like labels. And frankly, I don't even
Mm,
like I don't out on the streets like, hey guys, I'm an atheist. Like I don't say that.
right.
I don't talk like that. It's only on
Right.
my show that I do that. In real life, I'm just a normal person. And
Hmm.
if we talk about those things, which often it does come up, then I'll say, well, I'm what you would call an atheist, which is just I don't see enough evidence to convince me to continue to believe in the God that I once believed in. But I don't know, how could I know? I don't know. I don't know everything. I've never died before. So
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
lot of that stuff seems very unlikely to me. There's zero evidence to support that claim.
Hmm.
So I'm going to go with just what I can see and experience in real everyday life.
Hmm.
Um, and that just brought me peace. I felt so free.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Hmm.
yeah, letting go of that last piece. I was gonna say, I don't like labels. I don't like when people say, "Oh, you have OCD." It's like, no, I just like things clean. Like
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
turn a knob 7 times before I leave and then have to wipe the handle down it's like that to me. I had a therapist actually say this. They said, "Timmy, here's the deal. You wouldn't be wearing OCD as a badge of honor. If you actually had OCD, it wouldn't be something you're like, "Oh my God, I have OCD." Like it's torment. It's a real condition. You just
Hmm.
like, maybe you're a perfectionist, maybe you like things clean, but OCD is not something that you want.
Hmm.
It's not something that people what did he say? He said it's something that people suffer with. He said it impacts their lives in a negative way. True OCD or ADHD or all those
Hmm.
things. Um, and that goes with life too. I don't label. I am an atheist, but I don't walk around with a shirt that says that.
But
And I
maybe
think,
you should.
yeah, well, I know when I was a Christian, when I finally let go of that, that was part of my thinking was like, I don't want to be labeled.
Yeah,
Like if you
I
say Christian, that means
100%.
not gay
And I hear
hater,
that all the time
all this
because it
stuff.
feels like the label itself it belongs to like that whole need is part of being Christian.
Right,
Because being Christian has just as much to do with not being not Christian.
right.
You need to define yourself as not that,
Yeah,
something that you're not. And then when you're not Christian, you're like, I'm a human. So are you all, we all
right.
are. And it's like what and I remember deconstructing when it hit me and I was like, oh my gosh, I can just think thoughts in my head that people don't have to know.
Yeah,
And like going to church, you're always talking about kind of your personal thoughts. Like you're trained to do that. And I was like, I can just have thoughts to myself. Imagine that. And
yeah,
and now it's just I see so much religious talk as it's very invasive. We're trained to kind of invade our privacy and even even for you to maybe feel pushed to say you're atheist is like, well, that's sort of invasive. You could say it if you want, but like what business is it really of anyone's what you think? And I think coming out of that, that's why we say like, no, I'm not doing a label. Like my thoughts are fluid and they're mine.
yeah. Yeah, there's you just said something that makes me think of this. To me, religion, especially the fundamental kind, I only have one experience, which is the one I had, which is a very fundamental religion. It really does poison your life experience.
Yep.
It really it messes you up sexually. You're like, I can't have sex till I'm married, but then I did, and I feel bad. I'm a bad person. It's like you have a pool that's been all clean, it's all
Mm,
beautiful. And someone goes
mm,
and pours mud in it.
Mm,
To me, that's what religion does to the mind. It poisons the way you
mm.
think. The fact that there's going to be a comment down below from a Christian that's going to tell us that we're going to hell, they don't realize it, but
Bring
they've
it.
been poisoned. It's like they've been
Mm,
poisoned and they don't know it. They're living
mm,
less of a life by feeling that way and allowing those feelings to come to their mouth and allowing that to go to their fingers to type that kind of a message. Like I
mm.
get that message all the time. Almost every video, there's somebody that puts on there, well, you'll find out on
I
judgment
know.
day and
I
you won't
know.
be happy. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like trying to threaten me with Santa's naughty and nice list. Like,
My
come
TikTok account, I
on.
get tens of thousands of those comments like under one video. And the only thing they didn't think about is that that was feeding the algorithm and sending that video they hated everywhere.
That's why I'm like, hey, everybody,
That's
cuss
how we
this
go
stuff. Like,
viral.
tell me what you
Hey,
think.
hey, but you know, but what you said though is that's what breaks my heart. Okay, swimming pool, right? And then you throw this like dirt bomb into it. But you say you start out with a clean pool. When you are born into a fundamentalist family, a fundamentalist culture, fundamentalist world, you never experienced or remember what it was to be that clean swimming pool.
Mm,
And deconstructing is an entirely different process than for someone who came into it later, because being a muddy swimming pool is all you ever knew. And
yeah.
you grew up being told that muddy was beautiful and it was the way to be. You
Mm.
had to wait until your filter got so fucking clogged that you couldn't make it one more day because you were in so much pain. And then you feel everyone you loved, your whole community who said they would be there for you no matter what, abandon you.
Wow.
And
That's
it
profound.
deconstruction is traumatic.
That's very profound because they say that a lot about people that aren't feeling well. They've always felt that way. They've all so
Mm.
that's the normal.
Mhm.
And when they
Mhm.
get well, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I
This is
never
what you all
knew."
were feeling.
Yeah, like, I've
Mhm.
never felt this good.
Yeah.
I never
Yep.
thought I could walk without pain in my joints, and now that I'm walking without it's like, yeah, they never had that experience. What a great way to say that. I never
And
thought of
imagine if they grew up in a whole world where everyone had pain in their knees. It wasn't just them that had it.
everybody had dirty pools.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents'
Yeah.
pool was dirty, my
Yeah.
friend's pool, like, everybody had dirty pools, and so
Yes.
that was the norm. This is
And they all
this
got
is
a
what
Medal of
pools look
Honor for
like.
how dirty their pool was.
Yep. Man,
Yeah.
what a great way. I'm gonna do a video about that separately because
Oh,
that's literally that's a great way to picture what it was like. Because people ask me all the time, why did it take you 48 years? And it's to your point. I had no other reference.
yeah.
Everybody
Frame of
I
reference.
knew was a Christian, and even those who maybe really weren't signaled that they were Christian, right? They make a touchdown and they, oh,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so it just like this is normal that everybody believes in God. And it,
Yeah.
it wasn't until when you get out of when Truman gets out of the dome and it's like, oh my gosh, there are like other people here that aren't always trying to sell products, Hey,
Yeah.
Truman, do you notice my new mug here? It's like he always would kind of like, what is that? That's kind of weird. Well, but that was the world he was in. And you just accept that weirdness. That is weird that people are going to break into a commercial type thing about a product to their partner. Like it was just weird. And he would always kind of like look around like, who are you talking to? And that's what it's like to be a Christian. It's
Yeah.
just this is what it is.
So
And
I used to sell
truly,
Adventist books door to door as a teenager to raise money to go to Adventist school.
you read a Bible.
I was a call porter. I was actually really good at it. I was always like the top seller because I can talk. Like I never like lacked skills and I can like make friends with people like that. So, just a little bit of religious manipulation. And I'm 14 years old, man. I was out there pounding down those doors for Jesus. But
Wow.
there was this, we were told like, oh my goodness, like people are going to be lost. Like they need these books, they need to be saved. Like run, like run between the doors. And we had like 20-year-olds like driving us around in minivans doing this, and it was just this whole like fear state. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I have to save them like from being lost. And I remember, I mean, it was just a few years ago that I first broke a Sabbath, didn't keep a Saturday. And I went to Costco and broke Sabbath. And I was walking out of Costco, and there's
The
all these
devil's gonna
people
get you.
coming in, and I uh and it hits me. I don't have to save them. I can just be. I can just exist. And it was like, oh, I just felt like waves like rolling off of me to just be a part of the human family for the first time in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in the final moments here, clearly we're gonna do this again, and we could talk for hours. I'm picking up. What would be your advice to, because it seems like my channel really does reach I've said this many times, it bears repeating now. I don't do what I'm doing to convert people out of their religious
Hmm.
background. That is
Amen.
really not it, right? I'm telling my story, my experience being in that world. So I would say, yeah, I do have some Christians that pop on and whatever, and I'm not trying to convince them of anything. Um, but I do have the majority of people who watch my videos are starting to have the questions and doubts. They are starting to wrestle with what they've always been taught to be true. What's your advice for people who are watching this video who are maybe they're still going to church, but they're just like, I don't think this is true. How could this
Hmm.
be true?
Hmm.
What's your words to them should be, either books or thoughts or ideas or practices they should engage in
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
allow themselves to go down that road with minimal, um,
Hmm.
minimal trauma from
Hmm.
the family and friends and maybe even their
Hmm.
pastor who will try to shame them and,
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
get them to
Yeah.
stop watching
So
videos like
my
this.
the first yeah, just so you know, if you ever wondered what Satan looked like, you're looking at him.
Yeah, yeah,
My first thing I would give them is this mantra that says, "You're not crazy. You're waking up."
yeah,
And your whole community is going to make you feel crazy. You're not crazy, you're waking up. And one of the most helpful things that someone ever said to me is, you don't read a book all in one day. You read a little bit and you put a bookmark in it.
yeah,
So if you're questioning something, spend some time kind of reading a few chapters of that book, so to speak, and put a bookmark in it. Expose yourself to new ideas. Look at maybe other faith traditions or people who do wisdom talks, and just expand. And because of the way you grew up, you're inclined to believe things immediately.
mm,
Practice watching and observing, and sort of like I say, imagine you're holding something rather than clutching it to your chest. Take something in and hold it out for a bit. Just put a bookmark in it. And then you'll see over time you're making a whole new puzzle. You put the pieces out, get some new pieces, some new ideas, expose yourself to some science, some different ways of thinking. And slowly you'll see some things start to come together. But the same goes, make some new circles of people. And I would say, go meet some people who aren't Christians. Go join yoga. Go, I don't know, join a philosophy club, Dungeons and Dragons at the library, whatever it is. Meet some different people, or people who are Christians outside of your community, whatever it is. Um, because if you have started deconstructing, you're likely going to continue, and you're probably going to experience the bottom fall out of your world at some point. And those new people you've brought into your world, they could be your ride or die.
yeah,
And give it time. It's kind of like going through a dark tunnel. It's gonna probably get a lot darker. But there's light on the other side. And I'm telling you, like, for all the joy and happiness and peace that the church promised, there is nothing that tastes like the freedom of breaking free from religion. It
yeah,
is worth it.
yeah. Yeah, and going back to that pool analogy, it really, the reason I've told some people, I'm like, listen, you already believe what you believe. Like you believe those certain things. So, like you said, now it's don't take your beliefs as they're you. They're not you. You're a person that has these beliefs, And
Yeah.
there are other people who have other beliefs, and they're
Mhm.
just as convinced about their beliefs and their truth as you are about yours. And we can't all be right because these are all conflicting, right? So I've always encouraged people, if you're in a church that it's like you take one step forward and then the church shames you and you go three steps back. I don't see how that's helpful. That's like cleaning a pool while someone else is dumping shit into it. It's like
Mhm.
you're
Mhm.
never going to, it's going to continue to stay muddled. And you might even be more uh, messed up because of the back and the forth and the back and the forth. If you're in a very fundamental and you're starting to have these questions, people say, well, I'm going to go make an appointment with my pastor. I'm like, oh, no, no, like, no. That's like you're leaving the cult and you go back to talk to David Koresh. It's like, no, don't go try to get clarity from David Koresh. He's going
But
to
you know,
suck
when
you
you
back
flush a
in.
toilet, it has to swirl a few times before it goes down.
Yes.
It's just
So
got
I
to
love
swirl
your
again.
idea. Read other things. What helped me, and I love that advice because that's so true. When I got to the point where, so I used to like Christopher Hitchens. I'm ashamed to say this, or sad to say this, not ashamed, sad to say this, that I thought he was the devil, right? He was an atheist. He was an enemy of God. I remember thinking that about him and Richard Dawkins, Sam
Mm,
Harris, all these people that I now
mhm,
revere. I finally got to a place where I was like, okay, fine. Like I'm a Christian. I believe in all this stuff. Why, why can't I read the God delusion? Like I can read the God delusion. Like if my Christianity is true, it'll be true after I read
mhm,
this book, right?
mhm. Truth
And
can hand
that's
up to being challenged.
that's the thing that was a part of my journey that I've really not even delved
Mm,
delved too deep into. But that
mhm.
was the
That's
part
huge. That's
I
huge.
I just did like you did. I separated this thing that I thought was true, and I allowed for. But see, the group that I was in, they said, no, 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 don't poison your mind with the devil's lies of atheism,
Mhm,
whatever.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I thought, but is that true? Like, is that,
mhm,
avoid the very appearance of evil, Timmy? Don't have anything to do with, there was always that avoid the very appearance of evil, right? Don't ever be in a bar. Well, I'm not going
mhm.
to drink, but no, don't be in a bar because that's the devil's lair. And you don't want to
And then
get
they defined what the appearance of evil was.
right. And so to your point, I do think that it's important to not only ask questions within yourself about
Mhm,
your true experiences, what you genuinely are experiencing, but who thinks different than you? Seek that out. Like, okay,
mhm,
this guy doesn't believe in God and he's a philosopher and he's this and that. He's very educated, he's very intelligent and seems to have a good life. What's it going to hurt to hear him out?
mhm,
What I
mhm.
mean, what does he have to say? You don't
That
have to
was a
believe
huge
it.
part of my deconstruction too, because it hit me. It's like all the things I was told not to look at and not to do, they were exactly the keys to my freedom. Like, this is my little spot where I do yoga every morning. It's been incredible for my nervous system, just that calm, regulated, feeling great. And yoga was a no-no for me, a lot of fundamentalism. And when that thought
It's
hit
the
me,
devil's
everything
workout
they told
plan.
me, yeah, the devil's workout plan. Everything they told, it's like there's no God in yoga. I'm
Right.
doing body-based movements. There's no deity involved, unless I'm a deity because I'm there. But
Yeah.
so, but I was like, okay, so everything they told me was satanic actually often became part of my healing, and it was, I was very glad that I looked at that or asked those questions. So I was like, all right, well, what's like the worst thing I could look at? Like, what's the big bad one that they told me not to look at? And we're gonna go there. And so that was witches for me. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, let's go read about witches. And I'm like, oh, what do you know? They're not at all what they said. And like, I'm
No.
not a witch, but I'm like, it's a pagan religion, which means of the countryside.
Right.
They don't have a Satan in their cosmology. They don't
Right.
work for Satan.
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, it's letting go of that mind control. And something that Jordan Peterson taught me, who I have mixed feelings about, is that truth, you do not find truth by shoring up a thought. You don't pick a thought and then try to strengthen it or reinforce it. You find the biggest, baddest rocks you can throw, and you throw it at that concept. And what you have left with that wasn't destroyed by the rocks, that's truth.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I've got a new series coming out that I don't wanna reveal too much, but it's a series that is gonna start next year, and a lot of it's just questions of, "What if I'm wrong?" And
Mm,
because these were questions that I was asking. One profound question I was asked by a friend of mine is, "What if the Hindus are right?" Like, what this is when I was a Christian, and he was just challenging my thinking. He was like, "Well, what if just
mm,
as you feel you're right, your Christian message is the one true message, right? God's sent
mhm,
Jesus is the only way. But what if the person over there that believes the opposite of what you believe, what if they're right and they should be witnessing to you to get saved to their side?"
mm,
That seemed I couldn't even do that as a thought
mm,
experiment then.
mm, hmm,
Though it lingered with me until I probably a year later after that question, I
mm,
did I did sit with it and thought, "Okay, let's just play along here." I love thought experiments. I was like, "Okay, let's just think
uh-huh,
through. What
uh-huh.
if the Hindus are right? Well, that would mean then I'm wrong and I need to become a Hindu." And I'm like, "Huh. Well, what if the Buddhists are right? Or what if none of them are right?" And I just
Mm,
journaled. I was
mm,
still a bona
mm.
fide tongue talking, Holy Ghost rolling pastor. I was still believing all that I believed, but I just went with these thought experiments.
And I love those what ifs because it took no commitment.
Right. Yeah, I didn't have to let go of my what I
Mhm,
already believed, but I
mhm.
could definitely entertain those things, ask those questions, and play along. And somehow that was really a key element in losing the mental gymnastics that I had to do to make
Mm,
sense. Like, okay,
yeah.
to me, okay, how did Noah build that ark? And how could two of every species of animals around the world be housed there, fed there, dealing with their way? Like, I just asked these questions, and then I remember my answer. I was like, well, that's literally impossible. Like, that literally cannot happen. But as an evangelical, though, my mind would say, well, but with God, all
All things are possible.
right. If the mysteries belongeth to the Lord, I can't explain it, but God can, and He
I
doesn't need to
remember
explain it to
that
me.
the carnivorous animals waited to eat meat until the herbivores had reproduced.
Oh gosh, the mental gymnastics right there. The mental gymnastics of that. I remember one time the mental gymnastics that just made me laugh is I said the question about the Hindus, and one of my evangelical friends said, "Well," he goes, "I believe," and I'm like, "Where the hell is that in the Bible?" He's like, "I believe that when they die, they'll actually stand before Jesus and be given an opportunity to change from Hinduism to Christianity."
Don't
And
even
I'm
get
like
me start. Why do
I'm
we
like,
start
"Where
sentences
the
with
fuck
I
is that
believe?
in the Bible? Like, where
You
are
have
you?"
this rogue idea you came up with and it's supposed to matter to me.
It's like that thing of the age of accountability. I'm sure you heard of
Oh
that.
my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, no, this is huge. Right, because your God is an arbitrary ass. You've got people of this is what hit me during my mental illness. I lost mental capacity. And in that, I realized every day we lie on the spectrum of mental capacity. I'm not either capacitated or incapacitated.
Yeah.
And so what level of what IQ number does God need to judge you? And if you're just a little below that, you just get what an automatic in. Or in Adventism, we had a whole class of like people who ceased to exist, like people who were born in infancy, they would just cease to exist. That was, and again, it was like, this is, there was some random rogue verse, I think in Malachi that like mentioned something about they would be as though they had not been. And so
Yeah.
that took care of that one. Um, but yeah, you were asking about like what were some of the other kind of the major points that come up. And as far as toxic theology goes, it's going to be hell, original sin, like just like a shame identity. End times is huge. A lot of people have nightmares, terrors, years and years of just terror about the end times. And purity culture, all the way that deranges us. Parenting is a really big one. I had a kid born on the spectrum. That was a huge part of my waking up, because per my worldview, I had a good kid and a bad kid, and I was supposed to, punish the bad kid into behavior. And that was a trauma for me as a parent, as well as for my child.
Yeah.
And it was like, and again, age of accountability came up there, and so those are the big ones. But honestly, like I said, religious trauma coaching, it so often has very little to do with any of that, and it has so much more to do with our relationship with our parents, our childhood trauma, our current relationships, our marriages, our identity, and our purpose. And
Yeah.
when I do all of that, the other thing that we talk about a lot is embodiment. The feelings we carry in our body, our nervous system, and how it's showing up today, because religion dissociates us from our body. So we
Yeah.
talk about bringing our mind and our body back into coherence together.
That's beautiful. There was another question that I remember asking myself early on. Okay, what if there isn't a God? Hmm. What if there is no God? Nope. Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't. What? But what if there isn't? How would I live different? How would I be different? The
Yes.
challenge was, again, for me to not believe in God was to then be someone who pillaged, killed, maimed, or was just untethered. I would be untethered. And that's just a misconception, because you're looking at a dude who thought that. I thought that without God, I was going to be a reprobate. And when that wasn't the case, it shocked me more than it shocked anybody else. I mean, I don't even know what to say that
Kind
it
of like
is.
my makeup moment.
Yeah.
You were still waiting for your life to fall apart and you to
Right.
go
Your
off the
face is gonna
rails.
melt off, your skin's gonna melt off from the
Y-
flames of devil's hell
Yeah.
and makeup, and then you did it, and you're like, "Oh, huh.
I just continue to enjoy this.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
It is a very
do this."
when I started wearing makeup, like, my husband didn't care, but I never put it on in front of him, because I felt so self-conscious about, like,
Interesting.
because it felt like it's sinful, even though I
Yeah,
knew he didn't think that and I didn't think that.
yeah,
And I remember thinking too what you're saying, where it's like, wait, if I wasn't living by the Bible or by the 10 commandments, how would I live? And I was like, yeah, I think I would treat other people well and do things with integrity and honesty, because that's going to make the best life for myself. Like, it just makes sense.
yeah,
And it was like, oh, I can just be like a moral human just cuz.
yeah.
Imagine that.
And that's the part of why I did a video, and it's actually, I think it's the most popular video I have at this point, why Christianity is immoral.
Yes,
And
I've seen that one.
yeah, that one has gotten a lot of comments and a lot of views, and I think it was just an off the cuff video, interestingly enough. I just got
Hmm.
thinking about, because I was seeing all these scandals by these pastors, and I was like, the reason it's so immoral is when you do something that is wrong, not correct, and it would be considered immoral, to feel like you just can confess that sin to God and he'll wash that sin away without any consequences is wild. It's
One
just
second, I have a
wild.
little visitor at my door.
Oh, sure, that's fine. Well, I'll tell you what, Kristi, if you want to close us out with any additional thoughts, and then how people can reach out to you if they're in the deconstruction process and needing some, thoughts and coaching to help in that process, how can people get a hold of you?
Sure, absolutely. I had a moment of panic that you were going to say, "Would you close us out in a word of prayer?"
Everybody bow your heads and
Got
close
my
your
heart rate
eyes.
up. No, no, I can't. No, okay. So my website is risewithincoaching.com, and I'm very active on Facebook. I have a Substack. I write articles on deconstruction, reimagining a different way of picturing the divine. I have a Facebook group called Deconstruction Church, And I also host a bi-weekly live Zoom on Deconstruction Church, where we have honest conversations you never heard in Sunday school. So the best way to start is my website, risewithincoaching.com. And I do one-on-one coaching through that too.
Awesome. I see your little child
Yes,
is
my
there.
friend is here.
So, yeah, and as well, you're in our group, the Timmy's Deconstruction group on Facebook. It's fun. I think we're almost at 1,000 members there from all around the world. It's just absolutely wild, in a good way. Like, it's just crazy that so many people are involved and doing all that stuff. Well, Kristi, we'll do this again, and I appreciate you coming on, and look forward to having another discussion about deconstructing from religious trauma and how to do it in a healthy way.
Absolutely. Thanks, Timmy. It was so fun chatting.
Absolutely. Thanks, hon.
Have a good one.